everyone. Good morning. It's good to see you here. I want to try to make sure I stick to my 10 minutes. Maybe just to add on a little bit to the introduction that Benton provided. Well, before I do that, let me just acknowledge Maxine and Malia and say mahalo very much for giving me the opportunity to come and speak, but more importantly, learn from all of you and the folks on the panel and everyone. It really is a great opportunity for me, and I really appreciate that. Just a little bit about the PIXI, or Pacific Island Climate Change Cooperative, where I work for. Let me see if I can do this right. We are basically a creature of creation of the Department of the Interior. A couple of years ago, when Secretary Salazar came in, they were looking across the organization within the department and saw that a lot of the agencies were very siloed with respect to climate change. And so Secretary Salazar thought to see, or sought an initiative to bring about a lot more cross-agency collaboration. And the outgrowth of that is an initiative around landscape conservation cooperatives. As you can see in the different colors, there's roughly 22 of these cooperatives that have been established across the country that extend both into Canada, Mexico, as well as the US affiliated Pacific. The cooperative out here in the Pacific Island Climate Change Cooperative, covers not only Hawaii and Papahānaumokuākea, but also down into American Samoa and all the way west to Guam, Micronesia, Palau, etc. Let's see, within our cooperative, or the PIXI, there's about 29 different agencies at the moment. We were created, or an outgrowth basically, from the Hawaii Conservation Alliance. So it was seen as somewhat opportunistic that we have a very functioning network of conservation agencies that for 20 years have been part of the alliance. So when the cooperatives came about, they thought, okay, well, let's just change hats and we'll be the PIXI. So all of these different agencies came together. Probably some of the more important things about the PIXI, our mission, as you can see by the makeup of the organizations, is largely around conservation. So as we think about climate change and all that we heard earlier, it really is a mission of the cooperative to help managers adapt their practices to climate change. And some of the guiding principles that the PIXI is operating under are around this idea of biocultural adaptation. I'll expand on that a little bit more. Integration of science and management, as well as knowledge sharing, not only across the partnership, but down to the constituencies that each of these agencies serve. So with that, let me kind of jump in and talk, or try and bridge this idea of biocultural adaptation. We think about, not just impacts to natural resources from climate change, if you can, a little bit light, but this is an Ankyllium pond at Kolokohonokohau, and you can kind of see the little opaiula running around there. So as we think about sea level rise, the impacts, not just in a biological context, but culturally, these ponds are very significant for us. So we cannot separate one from the other if we're going to look at adaptation and strategies and how do we address this. We got to look at it a little bit more holistically. In addition to that, we also have sort of the tangible cultural resources. This isn't in Hawaii, but it's in Majuro, and it's shot in 2008, so I don't even know if the cemetery is still there. But these folks are really, they're feeling it, they're seeing it. Their iwi kupuna are potentially washing away if they didn't, exhume the bodies and reinter elsewhere. But these are the kinds of things that I think we can anticipate over the course of a couple of generations, as Chip Fletcher pointed out to us. So it's not just on the natural resource side, but culturally, socially, spiritually, all of these things start to intersect. So how do we go about dealing with this? And what are some of the strategies and methodologies we can think about to address this? This is just, again, the fish pond wall at Koloko Fish Pond, Kolokohonokohau. the construction work that you see happening there is after the tsunami, last year. They had almost finished the seawall, the tsunami came in, damaged the wall, and so they were going back and repairing it when I happened to be out there about a year ago. So they have since finished the wall. Even though tsunamis aren't really climate change related, I think it's an indication of what we have to go through, the thinking process that as sea level rises, storm surges come in, whether it's fish pond walls, heiau, ko'a, whatever, iwi kupuna, it starts begging the question, what are we going to do? Do we pick up and move? Do we let the ocean take it? Do we try to put up a seawall out in front? What are the things that we need to do? And I don't think there's any silver bullet or one-stop shop or, you know, express rule about how to do this. Each community, each place, each set of practitioners need to go through this conversation and come up with solutions that fit them and fit their community. Let's see, so with that, just some issues. This isn't all-inclusive or, you know, exhaustive by any means, so I just threw a bunch of thoughts here and in kind of response to some of the questions that Malia put up. What are some of the issues and challenges that we're facing? I still think there is a fair amount of scientific uncertainty. Chip was very good about documenting past climate change and evolution over time, but as we look forward, and he pointed out, there's lots of different scientists looking at lots of different models with lots of different information. And I think those that are opposed to climate change, or the deniers, if you will, really pick apart this and say, well, you know, this model says that model says this, you scientists cannot agree, etc. So somehow we need to be, we need to work through some of these uncertainties and get better, I think, at communicating future states. For folks down in Majuro or Western Pacific, they're feeling climate change now, so it's real. They don't have to debate about future states, it's happening. Here in Hawaii, we're not seeing those impacts fully, so sometimes it's hard, I think, for us to communicate effectively to our constituencies what those changes might be. Closely related to that is just the whole literacy around climate change. A lot of technical terms got thrown up this morning, and it's a lot to get our minds around, but somehow we gotta work with our communities and get that literacy up. Locally, I think it's also important that we start to see some real examples of adaptation. Whether it's fish pond walls or other places, what are the things that we can do, the stories that we can tell to leadership and policymakers, that they start getting their minds around it and can affect the policies that we want to see change. Again, some of the photos there, it's you know, wave overcresting. I don't think it's Majuro, but it might be Tuvalu or one of the South Pacific islands. And the other is sort of the repair on the wall at Pu'ukohola after, or this is Mailekini Heiau after the earthquake. So, which kind of gets me to sort of the next point about some ideas to address these issues. Between the scientists and the resource managers and the community, we need to be effective in translating scientific information down, basically to meet the public and the community's needs. I think when they're armed with that information, that ike, you can start to build capacity in the community, you can start getting traction and move things forward. Closely related to that, and this group that we're in, traditional knowledge is very, very important, not just for today and here and now, but how we translate that knowledge, transmit that knowledge intergenerationally. So our kids and our grandkids can come up and continue on these practices. Related to that is this idea of sort of bottom-up testing of policy and rules and laws. I think a lot of the folks that are out in the field, the resource managers, the subsistence gatherers, folks are on the front lines. You're seeing it. You're going to be the leaders, really, in helping the policymakers, helping the scientists understand the change and convey that up so that the right policies can be made. Kind of in the world that I deal with at Pixie and the National Park Service deals a lot around historic preservation. And so places or like Pu'ukohola where management practices needed to be altered to allow for the restoration of Pu'ukohola or even the seawall at Kalapohono Kohau, It's challenging the Park Service. These are real life examples that leadership has to get their mind around and adjust. So it's taking examples like that, whether it's out at AEIA or where have you, the policymakers, the decision makers are going to look to you for the hard numbers, the real evidence, and that's going to arm them to do the kinds of changes that we think are appropriate. So my time is up, and mahalo.